If you close your eyes and just picture Copacabana Beach in Rio de Janeiro, your mind almost certainly defaults to a very specific, vibrant postcard.
Oh, absolutely. You see the endless stretch of white sand, right?
Right. The white sand, the mosaic boardwalks, that ocean breeze. It's fundamentally a place of rhythm. Like it is the ultimate global gathering place for celebration.
Yeah, it's essentially built for joy. I mean, that 2.5-mile crescent of sand has hosted some of the biggest, most euphoric crowds in human history.
But right now, if you were to walk down that famous shoreline, the music is entirely absent.
It's completely silent.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of cheering fans or tourists soaking up the sun, the beach is sliced up by like yellow caution tape just violently flapping in the wind.
Wow.
There's this massive halted construction site right on the sand. And sitting at the center of it all is a profound, devastating tragedy.
Right.
The invisible, highly dangerous labor that props up our global pop culture phenomena has basically been dragged into a very harsh spotlight.
Which is exactly why we are looking so closely at this today.
Yeah.
I mean, we spend an enormous amount of our cultural bandwidth consuming the final polished product of the entertainment industry.
The glittering costumes, the flawless choreography, all of that.
Exactly. But the reality of assembling those massive spectacles is incredibly grim, it's high stakes, and it relies on an army of completely unseen workers.
So welcome to the deep dive. Today we have a stack of sources, including reporting from The Independent, Rova, and the Daily Star, and we're heading straight to Brazil.
We're unpacking the tragic death of a local construction worker who was building the colossal stage for Shakira's highly anticipated mega concert.
Yeah, and we're going to explore the actual mechanics of how these temporary cities are built, right? The complex liability webs that protect the artists, and what this terrible loss reveals about a tour that seems to be pushing the absolute physical limits of live entertainment.
And of course, we're rooting this discussion in the facts currently available from the ground, just ensuring we approach this worker's passing with the clarity and respect it demands.
Right. Let's get right into the timeline our sources have laid out. This incident occurred on Sunday afternoon, April 26th.
Which is just...
It's right in the middle of the stage build for Shakira's upcoming May 2nd concert. So we are talking about an accident that happened just days before the venue was supposed to open to millions.
The reports detail that a local construction worker suffered severe, fatal crushing injuries to his lower limbs after getting caught in a lifting system.
God, that's just horrific.
Really is. Now, a crucial distinction the sources make right away is that this worker was local. He was not, he wasn't a member of Shakira's official traveling global touring crew.
Okay, so he was hired locally.
Yeah, locally hired to assemble the massive steel structures that form the base of the stage.
The accounts from eyewitnesses on the beach are, honestly, incredibly difficult to process. Like, an onlooker provided an account to the news agency AFP describing the surreal horror of seeing the stage structure literally on the ground.
Just completely collapsed.
Right. They watched as people on the beach suddenly realized a man was trapped underneath the steel, and they described this frantic rush of bystanders and crew running over to try and, pull him out.
That chaotic scene is actually corroborated by the official statements from emergency responders.
What did they say?
So the State Fire Brigade in Rio, the CBMRJ, they confirmed to People magazine that the victim's fellow employees somehow managed to physically remove him from the equipment before the emergency medical teams even arrived on the scene.
The sheer desperation of those coworkers trying to lift that machinery is hard to even fathom.
I can't even imagine.
The first responders did provide initial medical care right there on the sand, but he tragically passed away after being transported to a local hospital.
It's just heartbreaking.
It is, and this paints a picture detailed in the Daily Star that I just keep coming back to. Parts of this massive, multi-million-dollar beach stage are now cordoned off, completely frozen in time. I'm trying to wrap my head around the immediate aftermath, When something of this magnitude happens in a public space as prominent as Copacabana Beach, how does it stop?
Right, because usually the show must go on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have global production schedules, hundreds of workers, immense pressure.
Well, it stops because the site immediately transitions from a production build to an active fatality investigation zone.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But what happens behind the scenes in those first few hours reveals the hidden architecture of how global touring actually works.
What do you mean?
If you look at the official statement released by the event organizers in Portuguese, there is a very deliberate choice of words.
Oh, okay.
They confirmed the tragic loss of life, but they specifically stated, and I'm quoting here, At this time, we are providing all support, comfort, and solidarity to the responsible company, its team, and the victim's family.
The responsible company. That doesn't sound like a generic condolence, like, at all.
No, it doesn't.
That sounds like a legal boundary being drawn.
It is entirely a legal boundary, and it introduces a concept called a subcontractor liability umbrella.
A subcontractor liability umbrella.
Exactly. When a global artist like Shakira, or really any stadium-level act, embarks on a world tour, they aren't traveling with the people who pour concrete or bolt together the base steel framing.
Right. They just show up to perform.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
The core touring entity basically functions as a licensing and creative body. They bring the artist, the band, the custom video content, and, maybe some bespoke set pieces.
Okay.
But they rely on local promoters, who in turn hire local staging companies, who then hire local crews.
So it's layers upon layers of contracts.
Precisely. It's a risk transfer model. The event organizers express their solidarity, but structurally they're pointing out that the victim was an employee of a subcontracted firm.
Wow. So they're insulating themselves.
Yeah, this diffuses the direct legal and financial liability away from the core event organizers, the local tourism board, and the artist's immediate camp. It insulates the global brand from the local reality.
I mean, I understand the business logic of isolating risk, but it really underscores how disconnected these local workers are from the main production bubble.
They're entirely separate.
They're building the foundation of the dream, but they aren't protected by the tour's primary umbrella, which actually makes me wonder about the lifting system itself.
And machinery.
Yeah, why was the machinery on this beach so uniquely massive? Because our sources emphasize this wasn't just like a standard arena stage.
No.
This build was for the Todo Mundo No Rio concert. Everyone in Rio.
And the name is entirely literal in this context.
Really?
Yeah. The scale of this event defies standard concert logistics. This is a free annual outdoor concert series. It only started in 2024, but it immediately swung for the fences.
Who else has played there?
They've hosted absolute titans of the industry, like Madonna and Lady Gaga in its previous iterations.
Okay, so massive names. But what about the crowd sizes? The numbers we're looking at in these reports are hard to even visualize.
They're staggering. We're talking between 1.6 million and 2.5 million people in attendance.
Wait, 2.5 million people for one show?
Yeah, for one single event.
That is just mind-boggling.
Try to picture the logistical nightmare of entertaining 2.5 million people. You aren't just building a stage at that point.
What are you building?
You are engineering a temporary high-rise city.
Yeah.
And you're doing it on an incredibly unstable foundation-shifting sand.
That's the part I really want to dig into. How do you even begin to safely support that kind of weight on a beach?
It's incredibly complex.
I mean, you can't just drive a forklift onto the sand and start stacking metal.
You absolutely cannot.
Yeah.
The engineering requirements are astronomical. First, you have ground density issues.
Right? Because it's sand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you have to lay down massive interlocking spreaders to distribute the weight so the steel towers don't just sink into the earth.
Wow. Okay.
Then, consider the audience size. For someone standing 2 miles down the beach to hear the music, you need delay towers equipped with line array speakers spaced perfectly down the coastline.
And what about seeing the stage?
For them to see anything, you need LED video screens the size of commercial office buildings.
Jesus. And those screens act like massive sails catching the ocean wind, right? So the structural load limits must be pushed to the absolute maximum.
That is the critical factor.
Yeah.
The lifting systems required to hoist hundreds of thousands of pounds of steel, audio gear, and LED panels into the air in a high-wind beach environment are essentially heavy industrial cranes and inverted motorized chain hoists.
Chain hoists.
Yeah, chain hoist is a motor that climbs its own chain, pulling massive grids of metal into the sky. If a single motor fails, or, if a load isn't perfectly balanced, the sheer tonnage can cause a catastrophic structural collapse.
Which is what we saw here.
Exactly. That is the intense environment these local crews are working in.
Which creates this deeply uncomfortable juxtaposition.
In what way?
Well, on one hand, you have local crews wrestling with industrial engineering, unstable ground, and literal fatal risk.
Right.
And on the other hand, you have the glossy, frictionless hype machine of the pop music world running at full throttle. Like back in February, Shakira announced this show and called it the most dreamed of concert of my life.
The creative dream of the artist often relies on the brute force physical reality of the crew.
Yeah. And the timeline of the PR makes it so jarring. Over the weekend, right around the time this fatal accident was unfolding on the sand, Shakira was teasing the event to her millions of followers on Instagram.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she was posting things like, almost there, Rio, prepping so many surprises for you, guest artists, new wardrobe, songs you'll love to hear, can't wait to be there.
The disconnect between a social media post about a new wardrobe and a construction worker losing his life under a lifting system is profound.
It really is. It's like watching a promotional video for a luxury high-speed train while simultaneously watching the crew laying the tracks in front of it get run over.
That's a grim analogy, but accurate.
The promotional machine doesn't pause to acknowledge the friction on the ground. It just keeps accelerating.
And that acceleration is exactly why we need to look at the underlying mechanics of tour routing.
Okay, let's look at it.
The logistical pressure to deliver the most dreamed of concert to an audience of 2.5 million people creates an unyielding vice of stress on local infrastructure.
Because the date can't move.
Exactly. The date is completely fixed. The city has already booked the hotels. The artist is teasing it globally. The pressure on the ground to build faster, to lift heavier loads in shorter windows to meet that immutable deadline is immense.
Right.
When time is compressed, the margin for error just disappears.
Oh, wait, hold on. If time compression and massive scale are the culprits here, we really need to look at the rest of this tour.
We do.
Because this isolated tragedy on Copacabana Beach isn't actually an anomaly for this specific production, is it? The sources paint a much darker picture when we zoom out.
The narrative absolutely shifts when you look at the broader context of the Las Mujeres Ya No Lloran World Tour, which kicked off in South America in early 2025.
It's been rough, right?
Yeah, this production has hit multiple severe walls.
Let's walk through the timeline detail in the Daily Star because it feels less like a string of bad luck and more like a structural red flag.
Okay, let's hear it.
First, there was a hospitalization in Lima, Peru, due to an abdominal issue for Shakira herself.
Right, which is a personal health issue.
Exactly, those happen. But then we see cancellations in Medellin, Colombia. And the stated reason for scrapping those massive hometown shows wasn't health. It was specifically cited as stage safety concerns.
And I need to stress, canceling a show for safety concerns after a build has started is incredibly rare and costly.
It is.
Yes. It means the structural engineers on site looked at the math, looked at the steel, and decided it was fundamentally unsafe to proceed.
Wow. Then we see scrap shows in Chile. And if we look further north, postponed dates in Boston and Washington, D.C.
And the reason for those?
The reason given for those was equipment problems.
Right. And equipment problems is an industry catch-all term, but it usually translates to logistical impossibility.
What does that mean on the ground?
It means the stage is too heavy for the arena roof to support. Or the custom set pieces are so complex that they take 36 hours to build, but the venue only gave the crew a 24-hour window.
So let me stop you there because this is where the picture gets alarming. If they're canceling shows in Colombia for stage safety and having equipment and rigging issues in Boston and D.C.,
Yeah.
this isn't just a local vendor making a mistake in Rio. Is the tour blueprint itself fundamentally flawed? Like, are we looking at a stage design that is simply too ambitious to be built safely under standard touring timeframes?
It's a critical question, and it requires synthesizing the difference between design ambition and operational reality.
Right.
As we established, the worker in Rio was a local hire. The global touring entity is legally separate from that specific subcontractor.
It's a liability umbrella.
Exactly. But operationally, a consistent multi-continent history of stage safety concerns and equipment problems implies a show design that is constantly redlining.
Redlining in what sense?
In the sense that it is pushing right up against the edge of what is physically viable. Got it.
When you design a show, you have to account for the fact that it will be built by different local crews with different local equipment in different climates every 3 days.
Right. It's not the same team every night.
Exactly. If your blueprint requires absolute perfection and maximum structural load every single time just to stand up, you are inviting failure.
Because perfection is impossible in those conditions.
Right. You are essentially building a custom skyscraper in a new city twice a week. If the design is too heavy, too complex, or requires too many specialized lifts, the risk compounds exponentially at every single tour stop.
And then you take that incredibly demanding blueprint and you bring it to a beach in Brazil.
Yeah.
You take a tour that is already struggling with safety and equipment delays in controlled arenas, and you ask a local crew to build the ultimate supersized version of it on shifting sand for 2.5 million people.
Which creates a devastating ethical and public relations nightmare.
Absolutely.
The average person consuming the news doesn't distinguish between the subcontractor liability umbrella and the global touring crew. Of course not.
They see a worker killed building a stage for an artist whose tour already has a documented reputation for safety cancellations. The nuance of the contracts is entirely lost in the shadow of the human cost.
Which leaves everyone staring at a massive, half-built stage covered in yellow tape on one of the most famous beaches in the world.
Yeah, it's surreal.
It leaves millions of fans confused, and obviously, it leaves the grieving family of the construction worker with an unfillable void. The Daily Star noted that it's still not clear whether the May 2nd concert will even go ahead as planned.
The logistics of finishing the build while an active fatality investigation is underway are incredibly complex.
I can't even imagine.
But the larger question hanging over the site is whether they should proceed.
Right. How do you throw a party for 2.5 million people on the exact coordinates where a man was crushed to death trying to build the platform you're dancing on?
It's deeply unsettling.
I cannot imagine the tenor of the emergency meetings happening right now between the city officials in Rio, the local promoters, and Shakira's global team. Like, the city wants the tourism revenue, the artist wants the defining moment of their career, but they are suddenly dealing with the very real, very physical consequences of that ambition.
It is a brutal collision between the unstoppable machinery of the entertainment industry and the fragile reality of human life.
It really is.
The old adage is that the show must go on, but we rarely have to confront the actual cost of maintaining that momentum.
So as we pull all these threads together, let's just look at the complete picture.
Okay.
We have the tragic loss of a local construction worker on Copacabana Beach, a man who lost his life caught in a lifting system while performing the invisible industrial labor that makes pop culture possible.
Right. And we have the staggering, almost incomprehensible scale of the Todo Mundo No Rio event, an attempt to build a temporary high-rise city on sand to entertain millions of people, requiring engineering feats that push local crews to their absolute limits.
And we have the dark shadow looming over the Las Mujeres Ya No Loran tour itself.
Yes, the previous issues.
A global run that already has a documented paper trail of scrapped shows, equipment failures, and stage safety cancellations across multiple continents, suggesting a production design that may be fundamentally out of sync with safe logistical reality.
It forces us to take a hard look at the economics of risk transfer and how the demand for bigger, louder, and more spectacular experiences is placing unbearable stress on the workers at the very bottom of the contracting ladder.
That is exactly what we want you to reflect on as you go about your week. The next time you're scrolling through your phone and you stop on a viral clip of a massive, glowing stadium show, or a sweeping drone shot of a beach concert with millions of fans.
Just pause.
Yeah, take a second to look past the artist, look at the steel, remember the human hands that built it.
Remember the crews who tightened the bolts?
Exactly. The people who operated the chain hoists and physically wrestled that magic out of the ground. The invisible human cost of global entertainment is incredibly real, and it carries a heavy toll.
We celebrate the ambition of these artists, but physics and human endurance are not infinite resources.
Right.
They have hard, unforgiving limits.
Which leaves us with a thought to mull over long after you finish listening. As the global entertainment industry continues to escalate, pushing the boundaries of live spectacles to ever more massive extremes, at what point does the sheer ambition of a show completely outpace our physical ability to build it safely?
That's the real question.
Where exactly is the line between a historic cultural moment and an unacceptable structural risk? Because right now on Copacabana Beach, that line isn't a metaphor. It is literally marked by yellow caution tape flapping in the ocean wind.